I still remember the first time I saw him, a small bear cub, huddled near the ruins of an old farmhouse. The war had ravaged the land, trees were burned, and bricks from shattered homes lay scattered everywhere. But this little bear was alone, his mother nowhere in sight. There was a strange innocence in his eyes, as if he couldn't understand that his world had already ended, that we were a group of weary soldiers, trudging through the frozen, muddy terrain of the Caucasus, our boots sinking into the sludge, rifles slung over our shoulders. I was just one of them, barely 20 years old, but war makes a man old before his time. Our days were harsh, our nights even harder, and every moment carried the weight of uncertainty. Food was scarce, and warmth was nothing more than a distant memory. When I first saw the cub, I was about to ignore him, assuming he wouldn't survive much longer. But then, I saw something in his eyes, a silent plea, the same kind of helplessness I had seen in the eyes of orphan children left in the wake of war. Without thinking, I reached out my hand. He flinched at first but didn't run. Instead, he let out a weak whimper. "Daniel," my friend William called out. "Leave him. He won't make it," but I didn't listen. I picked up the little bear, surprised that he barely resisted. He was nothing more than skin and bones, his fur matted and dirty, his ribs visibly protruding. Holding him against my chest, I felt the slight tremor of his frail body. That night, I shared my ration with him, a piece of damp bread and some dried meat. At first, my fellow soldiers laughed at me, calling me the bear's nanny, but soon, they, too, grew used to his presence. We named him Smokey, after the grayish-brown color of his fur. From that moment on, he became a part of our unit. Smokey followed us everywhere. When we rested, he curled up near the fire, snuggling into our coats for warmth. When we marched, he trudged along beside us. And when we fought, he hid behind trees and rocks. His ears twitching at the sound of gunfire. Weeks passed, and Smokey grew stronger. He was no longer the fragile cub I had carried in my arms. His legs became sturdy, his fur thickened, and his eyes gleamed with intelligence. He learned our ways, when to stay still, when to move, when to disappear. He walked among us like one of our own. Then came the cruelest winter, the kind that seeped into your bones. The war had come to a standstill, both sides waiting for the other to make a move. We were stationed near a frozen river, our camp at the mercy of the icy winds. Food was scarcer than ever. Some nights, we went to sleep on empty stomachs, curling up to preserve what little warmth we had. One night, I woke up to an unusual warmth. I turned to see Smokey pressed against me, his large body radiating heat. He wasn't just keeping me warm, he had also curled around William, shielding us both from the cold. That was when we realized Smokey wasn't just a companion, he was our protector. Then came the attack. Just before dawn, the enemy launched a sudden assault, throwing our camp into chaos. I hadn't even reached my rifle when I heard a deafening roar. Smokey. He stood in the middle of the camp, his massive form silhouetted against the breaking light, his growl echoing through the forest. The enemy hesitated. For a moment, they were caught off guard, and that moment was all we needed. We fought back with everything we had. The battle was brutal, but we held our ground. And Smokey, he fought like a warrior. He roared, he lashed out, he drove them back. He wasn't just fighting to survive, he was fighting for us. When the battle ended, we counted our losses. Many good men had fallen, but we had survived. And Smokey, he was still standing. His fur was stained with blood, but his breathing was steady. I ran to him, searching for wounds, but he nudged me gently as if to say, "I'm fine." The war eventually ended, but not all of us made it home. Those who did carried the scars of what we had endured. Everything was normal on the train until Michael suddenly stood up and started taking off his police uniform. Passengers stared in shock, some with their mouths wide open, but as soon as he revealed a sharp suit underneath, confusion turned into smiles. He walked straight to his wife, Emma, knelt down, and said, "Emma, will you marry me again?" Emma was stunned at first, then burst into laughter and hugged him tightly. The whole train erupted in applause, making this journey truly unforgettable.